Yeah, people, this is John from Flint Talk Radio, and I'm sitting down there with another guy named John, John Benjamin of Anarchy Productions. How you doing, John?
Good. Thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, see, the other day I was like looking through the internet, through the Facebook, and your Anarchy Productions popped up somehow. I forgot how I found you. And I clicked on it, and I said, wow, you're from Flint area. So as we were talking before we started this interview, we did the pre-interview, I guess, and you've been involved in movie making for quite some time, right?
Oh, I'm old school. I've been doing this probably for 40 years, I'll bet.
Now, it's like you were talking about the, well, it would probably be a shocking thing for most of those kids out there. It almost would be almost like considered like the, I don't know,
prehistoric
like
age?
Prehistoric age, Steam era. You used to do recording, you used to do your movies on 8 millimeter, right?
8 millimeter and Super 8, yeah, where you manually had to take the pieces and glue them together. Those were the good old days, prehistory.
Now, see, a lot of people, I mean, I wasn't aware. I mean, you said you've been doing this, obviously, since the 70s. And, I mean, I didn't know that there was, like, you were part of a production group and making movies in the Flint area for that length of time.
Yeah, it's just something I picked up. As I told you a little earlier, my dad was a big filmmaker at birthdays. He'd come out with the blinding lights and the cameras, and I just kind of picked it up. And when we were kids, I found like-minded weirdos, and we made movies.
You're the Geek Squad there in high school?
Absolutely.
Yeah. The guys that set up all the AV equipment, right?
No, I didn't do that. I used to laugh at those guys. And little did I know I was going to be in the middle of it, too.
Yeah, technology is something I used to shy away from. And then I got a job at Mott working in the audiovisual technologies department because I needed a job. And then I also did the same thing over at U of M for so many years after that.
So you've got a pretty varied career, too, don't
you?
Yeah,
it's something I definitely never planned on. But anyway, yeah, you have like Anarchy Productions now. How long has this incarnation of the production group been around?
Probably since about 2000.
Okay.
And you say group, and that's kind. It's mostly just myself. I was telling you, like in the pre-interview, I'm a one-man band most of the time. I build the sets, I light them, I film it, I write, I produce. You know, like it's usually on my shoulders. Sometimes I'm lucky enough to have a little help from some friends that might have the weekend off, but basically it's just me.
Now it's like, okay. Did you ever study film or filmmaking, like in a traditional route, going to like some kind of school, and they taught you about the different types of, the different directors like Fellini and all that stuff? Did you ever go through any of that, or did you study on your own? Or?
Well, actually, John, I got a classical education from my parents. My mom loves Bette Davis movies.
Okay.
And all the old classics. I spent a lot of time watching that with her. And my dad was awesome. He loved Blackula, Count Yorga. So he would take me to the Palace, which used to be downtown here. We'd see all that stuff every weekend. So that's my education. I call it a classical one. Well,
I think Quentin Tarantino, his mom's boyfriends used to take him to see all these movies, like the black exploitation films, they would call them, in the 70s. He saw that. And I think he does a great job of taking that, kind of turning it around. I mean, that stuff was considered low budget, and he was watching. Now he takes it and he does the same thing, large budget, and gets people to pay him large money to do that. And the thing is, there's some movies I think are just, it cracks me up about Tarantino, the way he does. I mean, he takes some of those old motifs and he works them so well. I mean, they seem like they're fresh, but they've been used time and time again.
Oh, absolutely.
But he does it well. He does it well.
Well, he's well versed too. I've never met him, but I hear he's an encyclopedia. I mean, any movie, even an obscure one, he will give you details that will either put you to sleep or just make your jaw drop. So I mean, he has the same kind of film school that I did.
Yeah, I mean, I think this, like, I worked at U of M, I worked at Mott. I'm obviously a person on board for a formal education, but some of the people I've seen, the movers and shakers, are people a lot like yourself who have done stuff on the fly, on a shoestring, and they're the ones who are the pioneers. I mean, let's face it, the guys who started making movies in Hollywood back in the 1920s, 1900s, or in New York, or whatever it was, I mean, both places, they were learning, they're flying by the seat of their pants.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
No, I'm not knocking film school at all. I think that's great, but I think a lot of the younger people don't have an appreciation of some of the older movies, the things that came before. And I think that's important to be able to go through our history.
I would say that, and it's another thing too, is like, I know there's a lot of European filmmakers, and I mean, there's a lot of ones that are considered critically more acclaimed maybe than ones in America. But then again, let's face it, this was one thing where America still has the economic advantage, it seems like, or the ability to produce and outproduce anybody else on the planet is making movies.
Oh, I agree. I agree completely. There's so much talent. We spoke earlier,
Right.
even in the Flint area, there's so many people doing this that up until maybe 5 years ago, I didn't know about. I thought I was in a vacuum. I thought I was the only one that had these weird inclinations. And it turns out there's just a ton of production groups and filmmakers running around.
Well, it's like I think now, as much as I don't like some of the stuff Michael Moore politically says. I mean, but I don't badmouth him because I think he's done some good.
Excuse me.
I mean, I personally don't agree with his politics, but here and there. But I think one thing he has done, he has accomplished, maybe inadvertently, but his presence here, him being from the area. I think he's actually brought the notice to the Flint area, and I think it's encouraged people to do more things media-wise, movies. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, if he's done one thing, I'd have to agree with you. He's kind of shined a light.
Right.
So the rest of us, get a little of that, get bathed in it a little bit, I guess.
Yes, I mean, I can't badmouth him on that. I mean, if I were him and his money, I think I'd try to develop a film school in one of the places here, like one of the colleges. I would think I would work with, try to get Mott and U of M on board to create a film school. Because both of them offer programs that'd be, very easily dovetailed into a program like that.
Oh, absolutely, I agree. I also think, the things that Mott offer are fantastic, too. If for nothing else, you get to use the equipment, you get some expertise, you get people to show you how things work, but you still have to have that creative spark, too.
Right.
You still have to have that drive to want to tell stories.
No, that's okay. We'll get into that. The first films you guys did when you were youngsters, I mean, was there really scripts, or did you just throw stuff together and then say, hey, we'll put this and this together? I mean,
there were scripts. They were really, really simple. Blow up battleship. Hero runs. I mean, it was nothing super complicated when we started, but we did have a general idea. We did plan a little bit on what we were going to do, which I thought made us kind of different than some people.
I can remember when I was a kid, my sister and I think it was one of the fast food places or something, used to offer like a little stage thing. It's not a cardboard, create a little stage.
Sure.
And had finger puppets. And we actually had finger puppets for my mom and dad bought us, and they also had some of those. And we used to have these little we used to do these little plays, and I'd actually said, well, here's what we'll do. And I didn't even know what I was doing, but I said, here, and I just wrote out some stuff. And sometimes we stayed with it, sometimes we greatly varied. But it was like,
You're a storyteller, John.
Yeah. Hopefully. I mean, but it's like that's something awfully hard to sustain. We're writing a script. You've wrote scripts out of
Yes.
I mean, I think it's like I've been writing a idea for a novel, and it's been in the works for 15 years, and I only got to maybe the middle of the first chapter.
Well, you're doing better than I am. I wouldn't even attempt a novel. I don't know if I have that much to say. I'm impressed.
Yeah, it's awfully hard because I see the images and I see the people, but I just don't know how to bring it out so that actually you wouldn't have to read like a 3,000-page novel to get to the crux of the story.
Gotcha.
And the backstory is awfully hard to develop. And now that's one thing where film can do is they could take go on a sequence. They can actually go back and have flashbacks that were pre-recorded,
sure,
but show those and kind of build the story. Now, have you ever? And in your films, basically, you've done how many films would you say, by the way?
Since 2000, I'll say maybe 12. We try to do one a year. And a lot of the story ideas come from nightmares or dreams, believe it or not.
Right.
And that Taco Bell burrito at 2 a.m. Sometimes that helps a little bit too.
Yeah, it's like sometimes it just says it keeps you up and it activates something in your brain.
It does. It's a chemical reaction, I think. Taco Bell and me.
Yeah, it's like you go, and when you do ever get a movie that's really successful, when you go up to get to the stage and accept an award, you have to have a Taco Bell burrito there with you.
Absolutely, fourth meal.
Yeah. It was one of its predecessors gave rise to this. But
absolutely.
Anyway, no. Anyway, so you were like you get your actors and actresses, you get your set designers and everything right from the area as well.
Yeah, we're Flint area, Genesee. I'll say Genesee County, but Flint's been my home forever. So we use talent from around here. We don't ship them in from Cincinnati or California. There are so many wonderful actors and technicians here. I don't have to go anywhere else. If I do need help, the help is here.
I was one of the girls that I went to high school with. I knew who she was. She was a very popular girl. She changed her name because it was her real name was kind of a harder name to pronounce, but she changed it to make it easier to remember. But she's been on stage in New York since, I graduated in '81. I think she graduated around there or maybe soon afterwards. And I think she's been involved in theatrical productions and stuff like that for probably most of the bulk of her adult life.
Okay.
And so that's and that was 30 some years ago since since graduating from high school. So she's on the stage, I guess, in New York, or has been in several films too.
That's awesome.
So she's got her own videography movie list or something like that.
Okay, like the IMDb.
IMDb.
Okay.
I think she's on several of those. So I mean and we've had several people. Like a guy named comes to mind. I know him personally, and I don't think you'd mind me mentioning him. Ernie Gilbert. I don't know if
Okay, I've heard the name.
Yeah, he used to do a lot of acting in the plays up there at U of M, where I worked at. Where I worked at U of M, and I knew him from there. Very, very down to earth, very nice, funny individual. I guess he's he's not in the area anymore. He's obviously moved out to be part of that on a larger scale.
Okay.
And but see, my thought is with all the openings of buildings and destruction of buildings in the open space, I think this would be a great place to actually encourage development of production groups. Because if somebody could have seed money, say we can get a larger, filmmaking firm to just say, hey, we'll try to develop a talent pool here because we can get the work cheap, the workers cheaper.
Sure.
We can develop. We have a lot lower overhead, prices in that way. There's a lot of things here that should be encouraging people to develop the talent pool, build buildings here for sound stages and stuff because there's so much open space available.
Oh,
so
absolutely,
cheap.
I agree. I was telling you a little earlier. Our studio is in the back of a dog grooming shop. I mean, my landlord's very kind. She uses 1/4 of the building, lets us run wild in the rest of it, and just kind of turns her head.
So it's like sometimes occasionally you have to when you're doing the the wrap up and you're doing the post production stuff, editing and all that stuff, you're going to have to find a way of not including that a cocker spaniel that walked down the set.
Oh, very true. Very true.
Yeah, a cameo appearance by Rover. No, yeah.
No, the actresses or actors will come out and where's the bathroom at? I said, well, you go through the first 2 doors. And then you're going to walk through a dog grooming shop. They're like, excuse me? I said, just trust me. And it's on the right.
Well, it's like, I think the movies could be shot anywhere. I mean, let's face it, human activity takes place pretty much anywhere.
I agree, yes.
So, this is thinking off the top of my head, but I think if people are going to be in that possible position, that's probably where you can film at. So, I don't think obviously you have to have some considerations when you consider large-scale repeated productions.
Sure.
You want to have lighting as a concern and, be able to mic the actors and stuff so their dialogue can be heard. But obviously...
My landlord's awesome. Like I said, she lets us run wild. And the very back of her building, the ceilings are 20 feet tall.
Wow.
So we have, our lights hanging and everything, and she's very cool with that. We'll build our walls, and she just doesn't go back there if it's an ultra-creepy movie, she said.
Now, we'll go into that. You make those thrillers and stuff like that, those kind of the bizarre kind of movies, don't you?
Yeah, that's the stuff I was raised on.
Yeah.
So that's the stuff I make.
So, I got to admit, I can't really be, obviously I admitted to not knowing you prior to have you come in here. So I've never seen any of your films. So,
okay.
But now that I'm encouraged greatly now to do that,
Well, they're popcorn movies. So, there's not a deep message. I just want you to have a good time.
Right.
And I usually, my MO is a twist ending. I am a huge Rod Serling Twilight Zone fan. So every movie has to have the rug pulled out or I won't do it. So...
I don't know. A person who I thought one of the best writers who was ever able to do that comes in my mind is Ambrose Bierce. I don't know if
yes, I'm familiar.
Oh,
yes.
Amazing way. I was reading one of his short, I think Incident at Owl Creek or something like that, and I was reading it, and I was just going along with it. And I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but I do encourage you to get Ambrose Bierce's books, read them. He was a wit. He was one of the best. His plot twists were like, in my opinion, he was just as good, if not better, than Poe on that.
Oh, I agree with you, too. H.P. Lovecraft's one of my favorites, too. A lot of that stuff seeps into my conscious. And Edgar Allan Poe, I love the classics.
I have a friend who is one of the most kind of like happy-go-lucky individuals, and if you meet him, but he is like, I would say he's almost like an expert in H.P. Lovecraft's work. And now it's so much so that actually my niece got into his work, and I feel chagrined because she's much younger than I am, and she's actually read the bulk of his work.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
And I haven't, so I'm going to get into that. I think
he writes in a different manner. It's kind of older English, but it's just nightmarish. Once you get involved in one of his stories, it's just nightmarish. I keep using the word nightmare. I had nightmares after reading a collected volume this past winter, and I think some of my stuff was influenced by that.
Oh, I mean, I think that I was influenced by the so that's where I didn't know that this would be like seeds for. But when I was a kid, I was really into 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne.
Oh, I love Jules Verne.
And now the steampunk thing, and see, that's where if people try to ask me to describe what steampunk is, the first thing I'll say to them now is like, well, did you ever watch 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea?
Yep, Captain Nemo and the Nautilus and.
See what they were doing as Jules Verne was they knew where we're heading. But the technology at that point wasn't developed so they could show that well. So they're trying to apply the technology they did have at that point in a totally different fashion than the people originally were using it for.
Oh, I agree. Remember the Wild Wild West?
Oh, that's another one I point to as steampunk, too.
Yeah, that was wonderful.
And the thing is, Wild Wild West, a lot of their the technology James West would have, people said, it was a little bit unbelievable. Well, everything they used, actually, there were patents existing for that at the patent office. Everything he used, like the gun up his sleeve, for example, that was actually a common thing. You could find it. Gamblers had them in their kits, basically.
Okay.
The knife and those, but all the other technology, like the heel that had the little small like blowtorch and stuff.
Oh yeah.
That actually was something.
I didn't know that.
There wasn't made for large scale production, but there was already patents in existence, or like somebody had to patent the idea.
Well, how about the Super Gatling gun? Did anybody have that? Where the thing was about the
that one was just based upon that was like a progression of what they did have though. Like something that was like the next generation away.
Oh, I used to love that, and I'm old enough. First Run, isn't that horrible? I used to watch that First Run.
That was the first. I used to watch that when I was a kid. And that was like, and I also loved it in rerun. I used to come home at school after school and watch the reruns. And I think it was kind of funny, too, because in some ways Conrad was interviewed about his role in that, and he actually said that the reason why they resorted to a lot of times you see the bad guys wearing a mask because they're the same stunt actors.
Okay.
And they didn't want people to say, well, he was on last week. So they would put in the middle of a scene where, why'd they got mask on for? These guys would show up wearing masks is because they didn't want you to know that they're the same guy who was in there last week.
He's been on the payroll for 2 weeks, so we have to make him look a little different.
Right. So, I mean, makeup wouldn't do it. And another thing is, too, they're kicking those things out, to keep up with production demand. So
that sounds like a trick I'd do.
Yeah.
I have done that. I've used one person, 5 different parts in a movie, and you'll never know. Well, you see a shadow walk by or somebody with his back to you on the payphone and, hey, Keith, one more day. But I was already in this. Just put the hat on. You'll be all right.
Do you appear in every one of your movies yourself? Or
occasionally I do. My big thing is my hands. Mm-hmm. My hands or my feet might appear. I might be the killer's hands. That's just a thing. It's a weird little bizarre thing. Or you might see, I don't know, there might be a picture on a fireplace mantle. If the camera pans by, I might be sitting there with a goofy grin. So I sneak in there a little bit.
I remember one of the Indiana Jones movies, they had Indiana Jones falling through these different. He was falling from a building. He jumped out of the second floor of or third floor where the nightclub was at, and he was falling through these different awnings on this one. It was in like Shanghai or China or someplace or some other country, one of the cities in another country. And one of the awnings he caught him and he swung down from was Club Obi-Wan. So it was a reference. Awesome. Yeah, it was a so it was a kind of reference to the director's own movies.
Oh, that's awesome! I never noticed that. I never knew that.
Yeah, I don't know if so many people did. I had to watch it 2 or 3 times before I went. Club Obi-Wan. Oh, okay.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. Those guys are awesome.
Yeah, and they're amazing at that. Basically, I think the filmmaker is basically got to be the kid who never grows up.
Oh, that's me.
Yeah.
I grew up with the Aurora kits, Sir Graves Ghastly, and you ready?
Yeah.
Dark Shadows.
Oh, I love Dark Shadows.
Come on, I lived there.
That movie, that series, I guess that was part of that was just going to be a soap opera. It was failing miserably in the ratings. Yeah. So they introduced that character of Barnabas Collins.
Yep, Jonathan Frid, rest his soul.
Yeah.
It's the typical story. Raced home every day. I couldn't get enough of it. And I think I learned things from that, too. If you think back, it was basically maybe 4 rooms.
Right. Well, actually, I was watching on Sci-Fi Channel just a few years ago, and you can actually see the boom microphone coming in on one scene, one shot. I was cracking up. Because, the faux pas they committed in that, but that was done live.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That was recorded live. It wasn't rehearsed and cut and rehearsed, and, this was done. They did that basically. It went up like we're doing right now.
Yeah. And I read a book Dan Curtis wrote. He talked about that. He said if they had to go back and edit something out, they could do it. It would cost the network thousands and thousands. That's why they just decided, let it go. Just let it go. It's fine.
See, I think that's where TV can actually resemble more stage production. If they can take that approach. And to see, I personally, I like polished products, obviously, but when it comes to like certain things, like I've seen TV series where they've left in gaffes, obviously
sure.
gaffes, and they just left them in there because they're hilarious. I mean, humans do weird, stupid, and stuff that's off the cuff. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
they don't pronounce people's names accurate all the time. I mean,
That still scared the hell out of me. How about you?
oh yeah,
I
did.
mean, even with a microphone in there, the minute Barnabas smiled and he had those fangs, I was done.
Well, yeah, it was the darkness and the intensity they built, and they were good at that. I mean, Jonathan Firth wasn't he the
Jonathan Frid.
Firth, yeah, he just passed away.
He did last year.
Yeah, he that was an amazing series because of the way it happened, it evolved. I mean, I think because being like a soap, planned to be a soap opera basically. And that character just being introduced, and that's what it galvanized the entire show.
Well, they talked about killing him off, too, but then he got just a little too popular, and it's like, oh, can't do it. We're going to kill the golden goose here.
Yeah, and the thing is, he developed his character as this vampire who had a conscience, who didn't like being a vampire. And now that theme's been picked up by so many of the newer vampire movies. People who are fighting against it,
You're not going to mention Twilight or any of that, are you?
No. I've never seen all of them. I know what they are, but I've never seen those movies because I've basically seen the original ones. That's when I judge them by that.
Yeah, when they were monsters.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand like the teen angst they have in them now. That's just me.
Right.
And, what do I know? I'm not making the money they are. So.
Now, when you make a movie, do you actually try to come up with a backstory for your characters, or?
Sometimes. I guess mostly if an actor needs that before we shoot, we might have a backstory. But if not, a lot of the time it's just seat of the pants and. My movies are shorts. They're not. I haven't done a feature. I like to go in real quick with my twist endings, get in and out. So there isn't a lot of time.
Right.
And I know that sounds bad to come up with an elaborate backstory for some of the characters.
Actually, though, I think it would be great to develop flesh out a character. As I say, you had a series of movies or a TV series. But a friend of mine, she watches movies and TV a lot, and she always said she always hated it when you got this role basically given to you by the when they first started to introduce a character. You know everything immediately about this individual. Like they got their bio being read. She goes, "Who does that?"
I agree.
It's unfolding, and so that's like maybe now if you ever do a series of shows where you have some of the same characters, you could flesh out that character more, introduce the past more, of that individual.
Well, but back in 2005, John, we did one called Fatal Charade, The Executioner's Tale 3. Believe it or not, I have a franchise. I know that sounds goofy, but we would do one episode a month, and we got up to 9, and we would release them once a month on YouTube just when that first came out, and it just did phenomenal. I mean, people were just hungry for everything. So I guess that's the closest we've done to actually doing a series. That was fun and a lot of hard work.
So that was good. You see, I was just going to ask, could somebody watch some of the stuff you've done? Now, is it on DVD or can you go to YouTube and see it?
We sell the DVDs, and a lot of them are up on YouTube and our Facebook page.
Okay, now when we wrap up the conversation, when I tag this, I'll put up your if you have a YouTube channel, I'll put that up on there so people can click on it and see your work. And but no, I think it's like
we have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go in expecting The Matrix or Star Wars, you're going to be disappointed. But if you just want to have a good time for 15 and 20 minutes, that's us.
I spent a day one time and downtime when I was at when there was nothing going on. It was wintertime. I was watching somebody said you should go check out some of these fan created fight scenes and stuff like from Star Wars, or for like their own short stories they created based around the characters of Star Wars.
I've seen a couple of those.
Some of those are amazing.
Yes,
they are amazing. I think sometimes they're on par with the production quality and everything else as Lucas himself.
Oh, I agree. And there's some people doing Star Trek ones. I haven't seen one, but I've heard that they're phenomenal too.
No, we talked about kind of briefly the old original equipment, and then we kind of mentioned here too, in the pre-interview that the technology now that filmmakers possibly could use, there's not much lag time between that's what it's offered from what studios would have and what a consumer later on would be able to buy.
Oh, absolutely.
They seem to be very similar.
Well,
or on the same standard.
You could go to Best Buy, pick up a consumer camcorder, a computer, and you've got a studio. I mean, anybody can do it now. It's amazing. Right. Back when I started, I was rare.
See, I think that if you got a basic, and I mean, what was it? Most computers that have like a suite on it, there's going to have some kind of movie making kind of ability on it, some kind of program. a lot of this is just limited to your own imagination now, because they give you a lot of these things. Even the cheaper versions of this software will give you a plethora of different, of special effects.
Oh, it's amazing.
No, do you find yourself using any of that stuff, or do you have a more of a higher end?
A higher end. I like Final Cut and Adobe Premiere and After Effects. I mean, I don't know how proficient I am yet. I'm still learning too, but the higher end stuff just seems to be able to do what I want it to do a little easier.
I agree. I mean, I just think that I think this is this is an interesting time for people who are creative or who want to be creative, who think they are creative. It doesn't cost you that much now to actually make an attempt at it.
Yeah, and I'm not knocking the basic stuff, like you said. Some of the software that comes with you can put a movie together. I mean, with that stuff, and that's a good place to start. That's just an amazing way to get going.
I was at a concert a couple weeks ago. I was filming it for the guy, and my camera just basically stopped working on me. In desperation, I grabbed my iPhone, and I shot some video from that. The video quality and the audio quality was on par with any of the cameras I had.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. And the only thing I was limited because I have so many apps on there and stuff that it took up a lot of the memory. I could have recorded if I didn't have all that stuff loaded on there, I could have recorded the entire concert.
That's amazing.
And it was great quality. I mean, I'm just astounded by it. And that's a camera that comes on the iPhone.
Well, that's good. That saved you, though, didn't it?
Yeah, it's like I said. I mean, he looked at this footage and he goes, "This is great." And I said, "Of course, he was using his iPhone set up behind him. He was recording stuff from behind the scene shots with that. So he knew the quality of it. But it astounded me, man. It was just really good.
It doesn't take much, does it?
No, it doesn't. And when you look at the cameras now, we have the average consumer variety in light years to compared to what they started making the commercial film industry would have had available to them. I mean, I'm serious. I mean, right now, the video clip you can take on your iPhone, you can send it immediately to YouTube. Okay, now, so I mean, you basically everybody who's got an iPhone essentially has got a studio in their pocket.
Absolutely, it's a good time.
Yeah.
It's a good time right now with technology and everything. It's easy to acquire, a little bit of learning, a little bit of a learning curve, but it's a great time to be alive.
Yeah, especially a person like I said involved in the film industry or wants to be involved. I mean, matter of fact, we have to find another term because it's not film anymore.
No, that's true.
Yeah, so I guess for lack of a better term, we'll still call it film. But really that's questionable if you can use it that way. But
when I started, I sound like I'm old. I'm not that ancient, but you didn't have an Alt-Delete button. I mean, if you cut a piece of film, you cut it and you were done.
Right.
I mean, that was scary times. Now it's just, I don't like the way that worked. I'll redo it.
Oh, I mean, it's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I found that when I was writing papers for school and got my first word processor. Typing was a bear. I mean, type. Oh, crap. Yeah. I don't like this. Type over the entire thing. Now it's like, copy, select, delete, gone, then reinsert something else.
Let me move that paragraph up here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good time to be alive.
Yeah, it's just so much easier. So it gives you so much, freedom, basically. I mean, it frees your time up, and, when that's being freed up, you got freedom back.
Wouldn't you like to live 100 more years, John? To see. I'd love to just see what happens around the corner.
Well, I think it's like, I kind of speculate about what it's going to be like. It could be used for good. It could be used for bad, though. I mean, obviously, now corporations want to put pressure on the government to make laws about any kind of thing that you might possibly make as an individual. They're going to have a copyright for it, even if they didn't actually come up with it. They want to be able to have, pre-existing claim to it, So that's got to be combated. I mean, and to keep a neutral, the net neutral, the net. And I think that's the biggest place. I mean, the internet is the biggest place, the biggest battleground as a libertarian, as humans is going to have.
I agree with you.
So many people are going to try to control that.
Yeah, I think it should be. I can't think of the word neutral.
So net neutral or neutrality. They call it net neutrality, and that's seriously in peril right now. You got so many corporations that are trying to buy congressmen to pass legislation to say everything it might come out with is theirs already, even though they didn't do it.
That's terrible.
Everything that comes out possibly is theirs.
That's terrible.
I mean, and it's like basically they're and a lot of these congressmen are on board for enslaving the population. They're on board for it. They give them enough money, they'll serve that end,
Well, I think it should be a refuge for people like you and I. I mean, there should be one place to go where you are free.
Yeah, it's like, well, I think that freedom is scary. I mean, and there's so many people out there who say they want freedom, but they don't want to have to question, or they don't have to actually look and see what's underneath that rock. So they don't ask the right questions before getting into it. So now they're running to some politician. Oh, save me and protect me from myself.
Yeah,
so I mean, I think that's wrong. I think they're selling their birthright for a bowl of lentils, basically. But
I agree.
But no, it's like now. Have you ever come across any kind of body censoring what you want to do, or
oddly enough, YouTube, they're very funny about some of the things they'll permit. I mean, we'll do some gory things, and it's rubber pieces and it's Karo syrup blood,
right.
And they got just absolutely horrified. I'm trying to think of what it was. A woman was getting her toe smashed with a sledgehammer. And to me, it was laughable, and we were giggling while we were filming it, and it still doesn't look super realistic, but I got an email. We had to yank it. We can't have that on here.
They got face of the death videos on YouTube.
And you can watch Saddam Hussein get executed and the soldiers beheaded, and I'm like, my little Karo syrup crap got booted off. I was so incensed.
Well, somebody there was a video of a guy who was one of the congressman or something on the floor of the House. I forget which legislative body, but he pulls a gun out of his briefcase, puts it underneath his chin, and blows his own head off.
You've got 2 million hits probably.
Yeah,
but it's still
but your depicted gore is too gory for YouTube.
It was strange.
Yeah.
I'd never seen the email, and I hunted and hunted and hunted. I tried to talk to a human. I found a phone number. Naturally the mailbox the voicemail was always full.
Right.
It was amazing. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is theatrical. You can tell this is theatrical. It's not a snuff film. Never got a response. I'm real careful what I put up there now. And
isn't that weird? I mean, it's like obviously you don't want to encourage the worst behavior in people.
Oh, absolutely not. It served the story, though.
Right.
And like I said, to me it looked fake. I mean, even while we were doing it, we were giggling, and I'm like, this has America incensed. I can't believe it.
I mean, I had a friend who was back in the 80s. He ate up every one of those movies that came out. Those collections of videos. For Faces of the Dead.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And he would sit there by the hour and watch some things.
That's mind numbing sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, that would be very mind numbing. Well, just sitting down, watching any kind of thing for hours and hours kind of changes your perspective. But I mean, just sitting there and watching real people truly dying.
I showed this once at a film festival, and I got to sit in a room with about 200 people, which is a thrill if you're a filmmaker. And the same scene came up, and I watched people just rock out of their seats. The popcorn went up in the air. And I'm like, this is why I do it. Yeah, I can't believe they're withholding that. It did serve the story.
Right. Yeah, it's like a reaction, man.
That was amazing watching that.
It's like, but I think that that's But I've seen some standards. I mean, YouTube is not consistent with their. If some filmmaker who was like a billionaire posted something similar to what you had, oh, this is great, and they'd be actually promoting that video.
Oh, absolutely, they would.
Yeah.
Well, they're whores.
Yeah.
The letter that I did get, or the email I did get from them, was funny. It said something along the lines of, look, I know there's probably worse stuff on there. They all eventually get caught. And I'm like, okay, well, this is great. This came from corporate. That's, they didn't want me to complain about it or anybody else with violence because eventually those people will get caught too. Okay, whatever.
I know that the internet is international, across the borders and across different, cultural perspectives. So I mean, I just don't know how you can have freedom and always have to be so sensitive to all these cultural differences. I mean, I don't like gore a lot of times. I don't like extreme violence. Myself. I mean, on a personal level, I don't like seeing the real stuff.
Sure. Oh, I'm the same way.
But I'd like to say this. I mean, like people say, I don't like swearing, and I don't like pornography. Well, I like to say, well, your mom and dad had a pornographic act to create you. Okay,
that's one way of thinking about it. Sure.
I mean, St. Augustine used to say that, our inauspicious origins. Basically, he said that we're born between feces and urine. And I mean, the world's it's not a clean and pleasant place.
No, it's not. I agree completely with what you're saying. I mean, there's a lot of things out there I don't like, but I'm not going to stop you from watching.
Well, exactly. I mean,
that's look, John's into this. That's fine. It doesn't hurt anybody. It doesn't bother me. I don't care.
It's like people always went to the cry is, what about the children? And that's a justification for legislation. Like, we don't want snuff porn. Well, guess what? There is laws against murdering people.
Sure.
That's that's in pretty much every culture they don't like their members being, brutally, savagely killed. So, I mean, there's laws and prohibitions and social sanctions against that. But, the like ban against sexuality, I mean, pornography. I mean, I've had Christians say, well, they don't agree with that, and they think they should be banned. I said, well, what if all the people are participants are legal age and all that? Well, they don't care. It's demeaning to. I said, but isn't it up to the individual to decide if it's demeaning for them to engage in that? And then they're so furious. And well, look, the same Bill of Rights that gives you the right, the First Amendment gives you the right to assemble in a church and read the Bible, is what gives a person a right to. They don't see that. The founders did not intend for that. Well, pornography did exist at the time of the founding of this country.
Absolutely, wood carvings and
so I mean,
bad poetry.
That's an absurd argument, Yeah. And then I'm not a liberal by any standards. I'm not, I'm a classical liberal. Liberals today to me are like statists. They want to control your life and they want you to be spoon-fed.
I agree.
Their variety of reality, and I have issues with that. I have issues with the button-down, the '50s mentality, from something because I was never a part of that world either. So I mean, I believe in freedom, and I believe in the slasher films and the horror flicks and stuff like that. I mean, it's basically I guess I would say the pinnacle of that kind of freedom.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And and when we use it, I do it to make a point.
Right.
It's not it might be gratuitous. It could be, but I mean, it'll just rivet you if you're involved with this character and then something just really horrible happens. I mean, I like the reaction of watching people just jump.
Right. Obviously, and I've, sat down, just talked to you for a few minutes, but I don't think you're a person that says, I'm okay with real violence against real individuals really happening.
Oh, absolutely not. No.
I mean, it's like I
cry at Hallmark card commercials, man. I mean, really. I mean, this.
Yeah. It's like, it's like, at some point, you got to say, if these people are so concerned, didn't their mom and dad tell them, this is not reality. This is a movie. These people, they've figured all this out. So the people, they got up who did this are probably now sitting in a chair watching the same thing or something similar with their family members. Absolutely.
Well, I came from a different era, too. You're probably close in age, but my parents would sit with me, and they would watch what I was watching, The internet wasn't there. I mean, now it seems like people are running wild and parents don't have a grip or just don't care what their children are watching.
No, they want the state to take care of their kid.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's like my family had an active role in my life. I mean, the thing is, they didn't try to censor me. At a certain point, my parents didn't care if I swore. A lot of my friends who were raised in the suburbs thought that was like, your parents are, swearing's like wrong. Well, why is swearing wrong? It's a word. Okay, if you're offended by it, that's you adding that value to it. Now, if somebody goes off in your face about calling you a list of names, I can understand why you're upset. That's more the intention.
Sure.
But, I think George Carlin did great with all the words you can't say and stuff. I think he was absolutely on target with that.
And I have that on a T-shirt that I can't wear anymore.
Yeah.
Because people still get offended.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's... I can't stand the overly squeamish people. I mean, life is... I don't know. I mean, there's a bawdiness. There's a pornographicness of, if that's a word, to life. And...
Well, I wanted to add this to that little note that I got from YouTube. They told me, and I have this frame. It said this was not suitable for children. And I tried like hell to talk to somebody. It was not made for children. This was, I did the plus 18 thing. I signed every form.
Yeah.
I said this wasn't made for children to watch. And if somebody's child's watching that, that's, I sound callous, but that's not my fault.
See, I believe, I've had people tell me that you're someone who's not supposed to have guns around the house because kids might get them. I was raised in a house with guns. I knew that they're very dangerous and possibly deadly, not pointing them at anybody. No incident ever happened. So, I mean, a lot of it is like, what the hell is the parents for? Well, they don't want, no, they want to be on their computer in their room watching what they want to watch.
Probably porn or my movies.
Right. But, oh, my God, their kids go, okay, obviously you don't want a 4-year-old watching hardcore porn.
Sure.
But it's like... What are you doing as a parent? Oh, well, he's got his own computer. Yeah, who did he just go and buy that out of his own money? I think that's an absurd argument.
I'm with you completely. I mean, it was a different time when we were. My parents really did. They cared what I watched.
It's like I grew up watching some pretty gory, violent movies and stuff like that. I didn't go around feel the need. Matter of fact, it probably did turn me away from actually wanting to actually act out and all because I saw the pointlessness of it.
Yeah, well, I've never murdered anybody either.
Right.
John, so,
and you make the movies.
Yeah, I came out the other. It's fantasy to me.
No,
it's
get back to your movies. Okay, what do you do? Is there kind of a type you do, or are you all over the place?
We're all over the place.
Yeah.
We've done vampire movies. Oh, geez, there's just so many of them. Like I said, they're all different.
Yeah. It's all different, and some
supernatural, some science fiction elements, but always with a twist.
Now, somebody, I got the banner up there. I got the Facebook page on there, and also I got the contact phone number.
Okay.
Now, if somebody's interested in seeing that, we'll also post the YouTube channel. We'll find that and put that right on the link so they can click on and go to that.
Tell them to hurry. I might get yanked. You never know.
That should be enticement. I mean, you could. Let's face it. There's no such thing as bad PR. There really isn't. I mean,
that's true.
You could turn that around on you. I mean, I think that's a badge of honor. When they have Faces of Death movies on YouTube, they had that video of that guy blowing his head off. Of course, that was a film that was shot by a news photographer, or videographer, or filmmaker. It was filmed back then, but they show that's available on YouTube. The person who I watched it from had posted it from YouTube.
Isn't that amazing?
But I mean, this shows the blood just coming out of the guy's nose. The top of his head's gone. He's slumped against the wall. The blood just pouring out like a fountain across, like a waterfall down his face.
I remember that.
Yeah, and but yeah, your depictions of it is being pulled.
Yeah,
I would say that's a badge of honor, though, John.
I guess. The moodiness must have snuck up on somebody.
Right.
Or something. I mean, there's always a build-up to it, and I guess you're right. I should look at it as a badge of courage. But
I mean, I'm serious. They were so convinced that violence was real that they felt the need to pull that video.
But it was in such a theatrical context with all it looked like a movie. It didn't look like newsreel. I was just stunned. I was flabbergasted.
Well, I'd say I would take it as a badge of honor on that one. As a kudo. I mean, that you depicted it. Actually, the jaded video watchers there at YouTube were so offended, or felt somebody else could be, that that should be like a selling point for that video.
Yeah, and it is up for sale. So
now, how much are they run? Do they run different prices? Or?
They're about $12.
Okay.
I mean, it's not a fortune, and I like to put that into a fund and hopefully produce another movie from the money we make, or share it with the actors.
Now you do have the day job still.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not wealthy yet.
Now, do you have any? I mean, you're kind of a seasoned pro. You're in the Flint area, so you've seen economic reality. Do you have any hopes, though, maybe one of your movies is going to take off enough to get the attention of a major studio? Or
I'd love that to happen. I don't know if I hope for it. I'm just kind of happy doing what I'm doing, and if something should happen, it'd be a pleasant surprise. No. I'm going to be one of those guys, John, that probably will get discovered 5 years after I've been dead. So I don't, Well,
look at Philip K. Dick. He gets a chance to see his movie, his book made into a movie, adapted from a movie, Blade Runner.
Okay.
And then he died soon after that. It was actually, and then all the other movies that came out after, created from his books and his scenarios, like Minority Report, Total Recall, all these other. Of course, a lot of them had different names to them in the initial book, like. The original name for Blade Runner is Android Dream of Electric Sheep.
I kind of remember that. Yeah.
So my friend introduced me to Philip K. Dick. He's the one that I happened to chance meeting. I met up with a friend of mine, and he was at a bookstore, and he had this book in his hand. I said, "Well, who's that?" And he told me all about this guy. And so there was another book there. It was like one of those books at like a closeout bookstore.
Okay,
yeah.
Sure.
So I bought a copy of that. And wow, this guy's pretty intriguing. So, and then I saw the work that they adopted from his work, created from his work, and it really was. And then I read the interviews with him. Like, there's a book of interviews with him, and he was several years, and now he's more popular now, and probably his estate's probably worth millions.
Okay.
Where he basically just basically languished, trying to make ends meet.
What do you think of the movie? You got me curious.
What I think of the movie, his movie?
Or what did he think of Blade Runner?
I guess he did have a hand in the production of it, obviously. Okay. So you liked it. I mean, I don't think he actually had some. He had some qualms about what they did, the changes they did make. But overall, I think he was satisfied with it. I think also, even if he hadn't, I think he was in hopes of being around for other movies made from his other books, that he didn't want to make that like his last stand,
Sure.
So, but he was realistic. But he had a lot of issues and stuff like that. But he was just he comes across as somebody probably could be a Flint area resident. I mean, he had he had a kind of obscure background. He was kind of like withdrawn. I mean, he was basically like a kid who retreated to books and stuff like that, and he was very well educated, and he read on his own.
Okay.
And there's a lot of people like around here. The guy who introduced me to, the works of this guy was a lot like him. When my friend who introduced me to Philip K. Dick, he just passed away a year ago himself. So
I've never read any of his stories. I feel ashamed of myself.
yeah, it's like it's like if you ever want to, you got my number. If you ever want to read or pick up a book sometime of his stuff, I'll lend it to you, and you can read it up. But,
I'll take you up on that.
But he had some science fiction qualities, and he also just alternative realities and stuff like that, and like he made some great. Tom Cruise's one Minority Report. I just saw part of that the other day, and damn good movie.
Was it good?
It's a good movie. It's a good. I don't know how. Now I've never read the book what that was based upon by Philip K. Dick, so I want to see how they changed it.
Okay.
But the movie was really good on its own thing. It was about crime. People prosecuting people for crimes before they actually committed the crimes.
Oh, okay. I remember.
Yeah, and that was the premise of that. And he saw, because basically he was against authoritarianism, and like most science fiction writers, I think there's a strong libertarian bent in most of them. Like Robert Heinlein,
I like him.
And thing is, I mean, it's almost scary. It's almost the tyrants of the world have actually read their works and saw their fears and try to fully get them manifested in reality. That's what they seem to be like. Karl Čapek, the one who wrote, who basically coined the term robot.
Okay.
He had this horrible fear of tyrannical governments and stuff like that. Allegedly, he died of a heart attack as the Nazis marched into his homeland of Czechoslovakia.
Wow.
So he died of a heart. They claim he died then as that happened because he saw his worst fears being realized.
Just goose stepping right over.
Right.
Him, huh? That's terrible.
So I mean, it's chill. I mean, and what's really weird too is like I don't understand filmmakers who actually try to cozy up to the politicians. I think we should be. I think they should be like so distant and so. I think you should almost have a sneering attitude to it as a filmmaker.
I agree.
Yeah, it's because they are the oppressors. They're going to be the oppressors.
I agree.
And look at the crap you ran into at YouTube. I mean, a depiction gets what was the name of that movie, by the way?
Executioner's Tale 4.
Now, see, odd as this may sound, I didn't know. I never heard of the production studio until the other day. But I think I have heard that title of that movie.
It's been around. It's a popular one.
Yeah.
It sells pretty good and people like it. Except you can't see chapter 3.
Yes.
I cut it down into chapters to run it up on YouTube, and it's a full 50-minute movie.
Let's take all.
So you can see everything but that one chapter.
Maybe we'll have to maybe eventually down the road get your own server space, get your own website created, so people can go just click on it and watch it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Get started for like a pay-per-view kind of scenario,
The odd thing is Facebook doesn't care right now.
They don't what?
They don't care.
They don't care?
Yeah, I don't know if they're watching or somebody's out to lunch when my films get uploaded, but I haven't had any trouble with it.
Well, it's like, and I would definitely say it was a badge of honor though. If you're too violent for YouTube when they allow actual murders to be shown, and actual suicides being be aired.
I was amazed. One of my fans, followers. He called. He said, "Hey John, I think you got booted off YouTube," and I'm like, "What?" And I went on and checked, and they had deleted my whole account over that. So I did what any normal human being would do. I got back on under an assumed name, started it back up again. I mean, it was horrendous.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's like, I like the fact that when YouTube started, it was kind of the place for frontier for creative output and stuff like that. Like, I mean, Mediocre Films. You ever watched any of their stuff on YouTube?
I haven't. I've heard of it, but I haven't.
They got one that's so politically incorrect. It's amazing. It's on there. It's called The Retarded Policeman. And they got a guy with Down syndrome actually playing a cop.
Okay.
Funny scenarios, okay? It's politically incorrect as hell. But the thing is, this person who's doing it, he knows full well. I mean, Down syndrome people are not how can I say, they're not totally cut off from reality.
Sure.
I mean, they're not. I mean, they just have some issues, but they're functioning most of the time. I mean, like the rest of us, as much as we can say we're functioning.
Sure. Well, the actor probably saw the sense of humor
in
it too.
Well, very, very much. They've had interviews with him too. They have them posted on YouTube. But oh my God, it was amazing though. They didn't have some overly sensitive group there trying to get those pulled because they're making fun of retarded people. And the thing is, I am politically incorrect because I think there are retarded people out there. I mean, calling them exceptional. What the hell does that mean? I mean, exceptional. They're the exception to the rule, okay? Okay. But exceptional years ago meant they're outstanding, like they're stellar in performance. Now they're just taking the English language and changing it. I don't hold it against a retarded person for being retarded. I don't make fun of them.
Yeah, no.
But it's a term you describe people by. I mean, it's like we were talking about this earlier. I mean, the N word, and I'm not going to say it here because I don't want to get a outrage on that and go on you, but the N word. Well, it's like, look, it's a bad word, but if you keep on just having it, like forbidding it, make it forbidden, you're going to just give it more intensity.
Sure.
Matter of fact, the more it comes like toilet paper, the less impact it's going to have on people.
Yeah.
I mean,
and like I talked to you before the show started, I'm of Middle Eastern descent, so I hear that word occasionally in combinations, and it just rolls off me like rain anymore. I don't even think about it.
It's like, yeah, I mean, I've been called, I mean, I'm a heavier person, I'm a fatter person, they get called that. I get called all kinds of names, especially when you get middle-aged, you're losing your hair, they get balding asshole and all. I mean, all these words that people, I mean, any kind of epitaph or whatever people want to throw, I've had it thrown at me. So, I mean, nobody likes it, but I'm not going to recoil and sit there and suck my thumb and go to a fetal position either, you know.
Yeah, whatever. Okay, wave your hand and go.
Well, I mean, it stings. I'm not going to lie about it, but I when that person was retarded, I didn't go around making that a point of making a joke about that individual either. I mean, they're retarded means prevented. That's what it means, to prevent something from developing. That's what it meant.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, the retarded. I mean, a retarded person meant they didn't have the same development going on as the average. That's all it meant.
So did they catch a rash of crap over that, or what?
Oh, well, about retarded?
The Down syndrome cop?
Oh, yeah, they did. Some people did, say, well, this is demeaning and all that. No, it's not. No, it's not demeaning. If anything, it plays off the perception that these people who think that they're spokesmen for these individuals are. I mean, it's always the person outside the group that's usually causing the problem.
Sure.
It's not the person within the group usually. Like Karl Marx thought he hated the working. I mean, he was speaking out for the working class. He never was part of the working class.
Yeah.
He never worked a day in his life, okay? So that's a lot like our politician here. We're speaking from the Kennedy family that comes to mind. Never worked a damn day in their existence.
Sure.
So how can you identify with them? You would actually, if they actually came in contact with somebody who was true working class, they'd be very disdainful and aloof from it because they are dirty. They smell and they have rough hands. They wouldn't even know what to do with a real working class person around them, So I have a real problem with the arrogance, so I mean about that, but...
Oh, you're starting to crackle on me a little bit.
Sorry about that. Anyway,
there we go.
If anybody wants to, you got the YouTube video, a YouTube channel we'll put out there. Maybe we'll get you some, drive you some hits there. And also the number now, if somebody's watching this, say, hey, I want to be an actor, or they maybe we can scrounge up a couple of wannabe investors. Would that be cool? Or
yeah, that's something we can always talk about. I think actors more than the money. We always need people. Some of the best waitresses in Flint have been movie stars in our movies. So, I mean, we take everybody.
And if also probably different set locations and stuff like that. And
pretty much.
Yeah.
We're all over the Genesee County area. So
Anyway, I hope this is not the only time you actually could show up here at the studio. I'd like to have you back on maybe a regular basis now that we've broke the ice and introduced you.
Oh, I'd love to come back. This is fun.
Anyway, you take it easy there, and I'm going to wrap up this interview today. But feel free, people, to contact John. Obviously, is there other information you want to give out before we?
I think you pretty much have it all. Right now, Facebook's probably the biggest one. We get a lot of fans from that, and a lot of contact. I'm the only guy, so I answer all the email. And if there's something people don't like, they can yell at me directly. I don't hide behind anything. So.
Well, John, thank you very much for showing up. I mean, you came really quickly too, from initial contact to the time of you actually showing up. A couple of days. So I mean, it's like
thanks for having me, John. It's my pleasure.
Have a good one there, and I'll see you again. Hopefully.
All right. Thank you, my friend.